It came from the programming that took place as a part of the process that was used to destroy the African people who were brought to this country. And make no bones about it, those people were destroyed. And in place of those human beings, those human Africans, or those African humans who were brought here for the purpose of being enslaved, the process that was used to convert those destroyed Africans into this new creature, which would accommodate the needs and the desires of the Europeans who brought them over here, was what was in effect responsible for this extremely negative view that we have of ourselves and everything like ourselves. You are certainly familiar with, and most of your audience should be familiar with, the infamous Willie Lynch letter, which rather succinctly illustrates how that was approached, this effort to destroy the self-esteem and replace it with self-loathing in these Africans in order to facilitate the creation of this new creature, which would be docile and accept his or her own inferiority automatically, that they would come into the world being taught that they were inferior. And once that was accomplished, we have what we have today. And it's more than just the vestiges of that process of dehumanization, because most people don't understand that the process that produced the slave was a process of dehumanization, because a human being cannot and will not be a slave. You have to dehumanize that person. And I illustrate it this way at our school. I would take a glass and fill it with some colored liquid and say, now, if you want to fill this same glass with some clear water, what do you have to do with the liquid? And they, of course, would understand you have to remove the colored liquid and replace it with something that's clear. Now, you can go about doing that in different ways, but one thing is clear: you have to remove what's in it in order to replace it with what you want in it. And I would then point out that this is what the captors did with our ancestors who were brought here from Africa. They disinvested these beings with their humanity, or of their humanity. And then once they had an empty vessel, they just started pouring in all kinds of other filth and garbage to replace the void that they had created by removing those things that constituted our people's humanity. And so it's up to us now to conceptualize and develop a plan by which we can undo the damage that was done to our people via that first process and restore our people to the human beings that we once were and that we must and are destined to become again.
How do you do that?
How do we do that? We attack there was a time, as you recall, when the Pittsburgh Steelers, in their heyday and when they were a dynasty, they were best known for their defense, and best of their defense was their 4 down linemen. They were the demons of defense, and most teams that played them felt that you had to somehow or other, if you had a chance of winning, or at least of not getting beat terribly by them, you had to somehow or other either throw over or run around that defensive front 4. And of course, the team was prepared because they knew what the offensive team was going to have to try to do, and they could nullify whatever those teams tried to do. Well, actually, the teams that did best against the Steelers were those teams who ran at their strength. And so what I feel that we as nationalists need to do is run straight at what appears to be the strength of those who would oppress us. And that is their confidence that we will never be able to reverse the effects or overcome the effects of the process that they use to put us into the predicament that we are. So everything that they say and have convinced us that we can't do, it is exactly that we must do to demonstrate that the effect of what they did is no longer here Certainly it does no longer permeate our people, that there are those of us who understand quite well that none of those lies that were told about us were true. And we have to then begin to organize ourselves. And what I advocate that we do is look at the models of success, wherever those models of success are. One of the things that I have an ongoing, or I shouldn't say ongoing, but occasional conflicts with other nationalists and even some conscious people who are not necessarily nationalists over, is the fact that I very often will make references to the experiences of Jewish people. Because I look at a situation to see who has been in a similar situation to where we are and is no longer in that situation, and what did they do that enabled them to come out of the situation that they were in. And then you assess to what extent can what they did be applicable to our situation. Some of what they did may not work for us, so you just discard that. But anything that worked for someone else that has the potential of working for us, I'm willing to use that. I don't care who the people were, that had that experience. Similarly, amongst the nationalists in particular, there's a great deal of enmity towards religion generally, Christianity in particular. And so if you use references to the Bible or that are religious in their nature, then a lot of black nationalists want to discount that automatically without further consideration. And so we will then go about the business of making statements about our people, which are self-defeating, without looking at whether or not there are examples that disprove the theoretical basis for the statements that we make. By way of example, one of the biggest things that we talk about in nationalist circles, of course, because none of us has any money. So we talk about how are we going to raise money to finance this, to finance that, or to do the other. And we say that black folks will not give money to black causes. And that has been repeated so much that most people accept that as a given without ever questioning whether or not it's true. And interestingly enough, at the same time, and oftentimes the same people who make the claim that black people will not contribute to black causes or give money of any substantial amounts to black people or a black individual or a black anything, those same people will express extreme anger at the kinds of money being literally almost thrown at preachers, especially these megachurch preachers and these televangelists. There was a report that I read just about sometime last year that claimed that Creflo Dollar had raked in $69 million during the calendar year of 2006. And he's not even the biggest or wealthiest of those guys. And now where did his money come from? It certainly didn't come in any large extent from white folk. So at the same time as we're saying black folks won't give money to black people or black causes, we're criticizing black folks for giving that kind of money to a black preacher. The question for me then becomes, what is it about what the preacher does that enables the preacher to extricate those kinds of resources from the same people that the rest of us say won't give up any money?